There comes a moment in life when you stop chasing more and begin choosing better, not just things, but people. After 70, your peace is no longer negotiable, and your time, once given freely, becomes sacred. You've spent a lifetime helping, holding, fixing, and forgiving, but now this season calls for something deeper. Protecting your emotional well-being, your independence, and your right to live quietly and on your own terms. The truth is, not everyone deserves access to your energy, not even family. Some people, without meaning harm, bring more stress than support, more guilt than gratitude. In this video, we'll talk about 5 types of people you must learn to keep at a healthy distance in your later years. You'll hear real reflections, practical insights, and quiet wisdom drawn from life itself. If you've ever walked away from a conversation feeling tired instead of uplifted, this message is for you. So take a breath, get comfortable, and stay with me. And if this speaks to something in your life, don't forget to subscribe, share your experience in the comments, or simply pass it along to someone who may need it. What comes next could make the rest of your life feel lighter, freer, and truly your own. There's a quiet kind of exhaustion that doesn't come from illness or age. It comes from being needed too often, by too many, for too long. In retirement, you imagine having more space to breathe, to rest, to reflect on the life you've lived and the years you still have. But for many older adults, that peace is quietly stolen by the people closest to them, those who, without even realizing it, begin to rely on them more than they should. It might start with something simple: a neighbor asking for help picking up groceries, a daughter calling just to run something by you, a grandson asking to stay for a few nights. At first, it feels good to be needed. You've always been the helper, the strong one, the steady hand in the family. But slowly, almost invisibly, the requests grow. They come more often, they take up more of your time. And before you even notice, you're back in a role you thought you'd finally stepped away from. Not as a parent or mentor by choice, but as a caregiver by default. The danger here isn't just physical fatigue, it's emotional wear. When your days are filled with doing for others, your own needs fade into the background. Your plans get postponed, your hobbies gather dust. The walks you used to enjoy become shorter, sometimes skipped altogether because someone else needed a favor. And what makes it harder is that you still love these people, you care deeply. You remember the times they depended on you for good reason, when they were young or hurting or truly in need. But now, they're capable, just not choosing to be. They call you not because you're the only one who can help, but because they know you will. There is a quiet guilt that creeps in when you think about saying no. You wonder if it's selfish, if you're being cold or distant. But here's the truth: setting limits doesn't make you hard-hearted, it makes you wise. In fact, protecting your time, your peace, and your well-being is a form of elder wisdom. One that takes courage to practice, especially when family is involved. The people who truly care about you will learn to respect your boundaries, and the ones who don't, they'll reveal themselves by how they respond to your limits. It's okay to be supportive without being consumed. You can guide without carrying. You can love someone and still let them struggle a little, because that's how they grow and how you stay well. This stage of life isn't about proving your usefulness to others. It's about reclaiming your time and energy for what matters most to you. So the next time someone asks for a favor that feels like too much, you don't need to over-explain. A simple, honest, "I'm not able to do that right now," is enough. And in that small act, you quietly choose balance, self-respect, and freedom. Sometimes the people who love you the most can unknowingly make you feel the smallest. It doesn't happen all at once. It begins with a soft suggestion, a gentle insistence, or a kind reminder. Your daughter tells you she'll handle your prescriptions because those instructions are confusing. A friend offers to walk you across the parking lot even though you've walked it alone for years. At first it feels thoughtful, comforting even. You tell yourself it's just how people show care these days, but slowly their concern starts wrapping itself around you like a warm but suffocating blanket. And one day, you find yourself sitting in a doctor's office while someone else answers every question for you, as if your voice no longer matters. You want to speak up, but the moment passes. Again. Overprotection doesn't always come from a place of control. It often comes from fear, fear of loss, fear of change, fear of watching someone they love age in a way they can't stop. But no matter how well-intended, the message behind overprotective behavior can still sting. You can't handle this anymore. And when you hear that message often enough, you start to believe it. That's when the damage begins, not to your body, but to your spirit. Because confidence isn't something you're born with. It's something you build through choice, through doing, through speaking for yourself, even when it's hard. I've seen many older adults, strong, capable people, begin to second-guess themselves, not because of any real decline, but because the people around them assumed decline had already arrived. They stop asking questions. They stop driving to places they used to love. They stop trying, not out of inability, but because someone made them feel they shouldn't. And this is where we must draw a line, not to push people away, but to remind them, and ourselves, that aging doesn't mean erasing who you are. It doesn't mean surrendering your independence just because someone else is uncomfortable with your freedom. You are still the author of your own life, and if someone is always trying to hold the pen, it's okay to gently take it back. That can sound like, "I appreciate your help, but I've got this one," or "It means more to me to do this myself." These are not signs of stubbornness. They are signs of strength. Boundaries don't reject love. They protect dignity. And every time you reclaim a small decision, you reclaim a part of your confidence. So if you've noticed that certain people in your life speak for you, decide for you, or quietly limit what you do, pause and ask, are they protecting me? Or are they protecting their own fear of what I might face? You have faced far more in life than most people realize, and you didn't get this far by being fragile. Keep your voice. Keep your steps. Keep your right to choose even when others forged, you still can. Not every warm smile is sincere, and not every person who draws close does so with love in their heart. As we grow older, our lives often become quieter, simpler, and more focused on peace than performance. But in that stillness, some people see an opening, a chance to benefit from your kindness, your resources, or your trust. And they won't always come with demands. In fact, they rarely do at first. They come with charm, with nostalgia, with just the right amount of attention to make you feel remembered, even cherished. An old acquaintance you haven't heard from in years suddenly wants to visit. A relative who was once distant now checks in more often, always ending the call with a soft mention of their struggles. It doesn't feel like manipulation in the beginning. It feels like reconnection, until it doesn't. There's a particular kind of emotional fatigue that comes from giving to someone who doesn't give back, not because they can't, but because they don't intend to. You start noticing patterns. Their calls grow longer when they need something. Their visits often lead to stories of hardship, followed by a pause you've come to recognize. Maybe it's a financial favor. Maybe it's a request for you to just co-sign something small. Maybe it's emotional, the kind that pulls you into their constant problems with no regard for what it does to your own well-being. And because you care, because you've always believed in helping where you can, you hesitate. You don't want to say no too quickly. You give a little, then a little more. But eventually something shifts. You feel used instead of appreciated. And that's when you realize this was never about you. It was about what they could get from you. That realization is painful, especially when it involves someone you once trusted. But it is also freeing, because once you name the behavior, you can begin to set it down. You can stop carrying what was never yours to hold. Saying no is not cruel, it is clarity. And clarity is a gift you give both to yourself and to the people around you. When you stop feeding opportunistic behavior, you give them a chance to grow out of it or walk away. Either way, you protect your peace. So the next time someone reaches out and it feels more like a transaction than a connection, pause. Ask yourself, would they still be here if I had nothing to offer? Would they still listen if I couldn't help? And if the answer makes you uneasy, trust that feeling. At this stage of life, your energy, your time, and your trust are not to be handed out without care. You've earned the right to choose relationships that bring balance, not burden. And sometimes love means letting go of those who only come when they're in need. There's a quiet moment many of us have experienced but rarely talk about, the moment when someone looks past you, speaks over you, or finishes your sentence. Not because they understand, but because they've already decided you no longer matter. It can happen at the grocery store, in a doctor's office, or even around your own dinner table. The words aren't always sharp. Sometimes it's a joke about forgetting things or a suggestion that you should take it easy now. But behind those small comments lives a larger assumption that your age has made you less capable, less relevant, less worthy of attention. And while the words may seem harmless to them, they leave a mark. Because the more you hear it, more you start to wonder if it might be true. Ageism doesn't always come from strangers. It often arrives wrapped in the voices of people you know. Grandchildren who giggle when you use the wrong emoji. Nurses who raise their tone as if you can't understand plain speech. Family members who ignore your input because they think, you wouldn't get it now. It's subtle, but it's persistent, and over time it chips away at the dignity you've spent a lifetime building. You begin to withdraw, not because you lack something to say, but because the room stops listening. You avoid trying new things, not because you're too old, but because you've been told that someone your age shouldn't. And little by little, your world grows smaller, not from physical limitations, but from social ones imposed by people who believe aging means fading. But here's what they don't see. Behind every wrinkle is a story they've never lived. Behind every pause in speech is wisdom that doesn't need to shout. You are not past your prime. You are not an outdated version of yourself. You are a culmination of experience, resilience, and perspective that younger generations have yet to earn. And if someone can't recognize that, the problem is not your age, it's their ignorance. So the next time someone dismisses you, interrupts you, or makes you feel invisible, take a breath and ground yourself in truth. You are not invisible. You are not done growing. Your voice still matters even if it shakes. You don't need to argue or raise your tone. Sometimes simply finishing your sentence is enough. Sometimes looking someone in the eye and saying, "Let me finish," holds more power than any lecture. And sometimes the quiet act of continuing to live fully, joyfully, and independently is the greatest form of resistance. Aging gracefully is not about being agreeable, it's about being authentic. It's about holding your space in a world that often tries to push older adults to the side. You've lived through change, loss, love, and renewal. You've earned every gray hair, every quiet truth, and no one has the right to take that away. By reducing you to a number, stand in your wisdom. Let others learn from your presence. And if they don't, walk on anyway, with grace, with pride, and without apology. As the years pass, you begin to realize that peace is not just about what you do with your time, it's also about who you let speak into it. There are voices that uplift, voices that soothe, and then there are voices that quietly chip away at your joy. The pessimist doesn't always wear a frown or raise their voice. Sometimes they come disguised as caution. They question your enthusiasm with a raised eyebrow, your plans with a sigh, your small joys with a slow shake of the head. You mention that you're thinking of joining a painting class and they say, "At your age?" You talk about traveling to see old friends and they ask, "Isn't that risky now?" Their words aren't always cruel, but their message is consistent. Be careful, don't try, don't dream. What makes pessimism so heavy isn't just the negativity, it's the way it seeps in without you noticing. One doubtful comment becomes a reason to postpone. One sarcastic remark becomes a reason to stay home, and before long the plans you once made with energy and hope begin to feel like distant ideas, better suited for someone younger, stronger, or more fortunate. But none of that is true. Pessimism is contagious, yes, but so is courage. And every time you allow someone else's fear to replace your hope, you shrink your life to fit their view, not your own. I've met many older adults who gave up dreams, not because they couldn't achieve them, but because someone else made them believe it wasn't worth it. They stopped dancing, not because their legs failed, but because someone laughed. They stopped gardening, not because they lost interest, but because someone said, "You should rest more." And the saddest part, they carried that voice inside them, even when the person who said it was long gone. That's the weight of pessimism. It lingers, and it turns small seeds of doubt into lifelong regrets. But you still have a say. You still get to decide whose voice echoes in your mind and whose does not. You can listen to caution without surrendering your confidence. You can be realistic without being reduced. And sometimes, the most courageous thing you can do is to keep dreaming, especially when someone else tells you not to. When you surround yourself with people who celebrate possibility instead of fear, you begin to rediscover parts of yourself that had been quietly waiting. The joy of trying, the spark of curiosity, the quiet strength of saying, I want to do this for me. So if someone in your life always brings the clouds, even when the sun is shining, it's okay to take a step back. You don't have to argue or convince. Just keep choosing light. Keep choosing movement. Keep choosing new beginnings, no matter your age. Because your story isn't over. And the last chapters, if written with courage, can be the most fulfilling of all. In the quiet season of life, when the noise of striving has faded and your soul longs more for stillness than applause, protecting your peace becomes an act of both courage and wisdom. The people you surround yourself with, especially after 70, can either nurture your sense of purpose or slowly erode your joy. That's why learning to recognize the overly dependent, the overprotective, the opportunist, the ageist, and the pessimist is not an act of separation, it's an act of self-respect. You are no longer here to carry burdens that aren't yours, to explain your choices endlessly, or to shrink your voice so others feel more comfortable. At this stage, clarity is kindness, boundaries are love, and freedom is found not in avoiding connection, but in choosing relationships that offer mutual respect and emotional safety. So take a moment to reflect. Who in your life brings peace? Who drains it? You don't need dramatic exits or angry words, just quiet decisions that protect the years you have left. And if any of this feels familiar, I invite you to share your story in the comments below. What have you learned about letting go, about choosing peace over obligation? Your insight might just help someone else find the strength to do the same. You've earned the right to live fully and gently, on your own terms.